Okay, welcome back to UPress Play, a sports show produced by FAU Student Media. I'm Megan, and alongside me is Maddox. We are live streaming on OwlTV's YouTube and UPress Sports Instagram. We're currently down Morgan right now, so I was just telling Maddox, I'm like, this feels a little empty. It's weird. We've never done it with just two people.
Yeah.
But Morgan, he's starting his job as a tour guide for FAU, so you can see him walking around campus. But Maddox, you've been doing a lot of broadcasting recently. How are you keeping up, like maintaining that schedule, keeping track of the games?
Definitely not easy, but I mean, I love doing broadcasting, so I mean, I don't mind doing it. But I definitely try to spare out what games I want to do. So like this past week, I did the Charlotte game. I also did the women's basketball game for both sideline for TV as well as broadcasting for radio. I also just covered a couple of games for the Delaware baseball series.
Oh, nice.
That's not even the end of me for this semester, because I also got the men's Miami game for baseball this Tuesday, tomorrow. Then I got a couple of games for the UConn baseball series. Then I got the North Texas men's basketball game the following week. And then the day before that, I'm returning back to my live sports production class to cover the women's basketball game.
And you finally dabbled back into some writing.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
just had an article go up. You covered the Joan Joyce Classic for softball. It's a lot of fun, and it's great that we have the opportunity here at FAU, to get the chance to just broadcast all of these games. I can't say that I've been busy covering games recently. I've just been busy with work. I just worked 4 hours and then came here. But yeah, I guess we can go ahead and get into our FAU housekeeping. So FAU basketball, now they're 15-10, and then they're 8-4 in the AAC. They've continued their winning streak that they had the last time that we met on Monday. And we were talking about the Charlotte game and how it was a big game because Giancarlo Rosado, a former FAU player, was coming back. And they ended up defeating Charlotte on the 10th. The final score was 87-75. I got to cover that game. You were there broadcasting as well.
Yeah.
What kind of stood out to you during the game?
Well, obviously I felt first off, I thought the fans were going to go be mad at Giancarlo. We posted a reel about how I thought the fans were just going to start cooking Giancarlo because he played a lot of meaningful minutes for the men's basketball team in the past couple of years, especially on that Final Four run. So I assumed the fans would be like, hey, you were that second guy, that second big guy. When Vlad would go to the bench, you were that next guy playing the post. And they so far really haven't shown, they really weren't booing him, which I'm not going to say anything bad about the fan base being oh, you guys should have booed him. I thought they would, they didn't. But I mean, it was respectable. Yeah, how they reacted. But I also thought Giancarlo's gonna have a big game as well. Him returning back to the alley, gonna put up some big points, and he only put up 4. But he was also going one-on-one against Vokatitis a lot of times under the post, and Vokatitis won those matchups. So I feel like the men's basketball team, this new men's basketball team, definitely did a good job holding Giancarlo under the post. Yeah, but also granted, North Carolina really isn't a tough opponent. They were I think 9-15 when the game started. They're 9-16. They're 2-10 in the conference, and when they played, they were 2-9 after their loss to FAU. So they've lost another game. So yeah, they're definitely not the top team in the conference. I mean, 2-10. That's what they might be at the bottom. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I was glad that the fans didn't have the reaction that we thought. It kind of would have been interesting a little bit, but a little funny. I mean, because that's normal. People, I remember when Matthew Stafford got traded to the Rams and then he came back to Ford Field, everyone booed him on. Yeah, but I think maybe that difference could be, and again, not to shade on Giancarlo, but being well, he wasn't really that top guy for FAU. Throws so much shit. Yeah, so maybe because really he wasn't that top guy for FAU, and then going to Charlotte being their one of their top guys could have been an edge. But I feel just for the fans, they if it was Michigan or Arkansas or Florida who went to FAU, which I will never do, but if they did, then of course the fans would be booing because it was really the star players, the star head coach returning to the alley. But for Giancarlo, again, that second guy in the depth chart for the center position, he had a lot of minutes played, but I don't think the fan base was really too concentrated too much on that because he really wasn't that starting player. Yeah, for sure.
But it was also nice. Michael Forrest also came to the game.
Oh yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I asked you, and you were like, oh yeah, I knew he was showing up, like, because you guys had like a staff meeting later that day.
That's because at the staff meeting, Angelina told me that he was going to be there, and you were like, why didn't you mention this on the show? I'm like, I didn't know until later. But it was really special. For those of you that don't know, Michael Forrest, he played for FAU, and he was on the Final Four team, and he led the team in three-point shooting.
I believe so,
Or not led the team. Hold on. I'm pulling up the statistic right now.
Yeah, but when I saw that, I immediately thought in the back of my head, because they were showing footage, I was thinking back to what I said earlier on the show, being like, I imagine the fan base would do, or like the marketing team would have like an old Giancarlo like picture or whatnot with him in the FAU. So I assumed that was going to happen. Then it turns out like, oh, Michael Forrest is here. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so Michael Forrest, I have it pulled up in front of me. I wanted to get the stats right.
Yeah.
So he is FAU's all-time leading scorer in three-pointers made with 305, and he's the second leading scorer for the university with 1,619 points.
Mm-hmm. He was also the only senior on that team as well.
Yeah, he was, and I remember he was the one that cut down the net, I believe.
Yeah.
And I know that Dusty May really emphasized how much he was going to miss his presence on this team.
It was also wild. It was also wild because I remember when the men's basketball team came back before their Final Four matchup, and I was there with media when they came back, and I remember practice, like the next day they were doing practice. I was attending that, and what was weird was that the biggest news was Michael Forrest going to take his final in his mechanical engineering class. Which is crazy because I was like, really, you don't see much like athletes having those like complicated majors like mechanical engineering, and everyone was like, that was a surprise. Like, you're about to go to the Final Four. This is like the furthest you've ever been in your program history. You're so close to going to the championship game, and when your star players, you're having him not show up to practice to do this exam, which I thought was a really great character by Dusty May, being like, listen, and at the end of the day, they're still student athletes. They're students first. I still want them to take their classes. However, also I thought in the back of my head, like, that may have not been the best choice since FAU lost by 1 point in that game. That might not have been the best choice, maybe, but I mean, that was still like very commendable of Dusty May. I
mean, you have to. You're a student athlete, and he was about to graduate, especially with mechanical engineering. I'm not a mechanical engineering major, but I thought I was going to go into architecture, and that was difficult, so I can just imagine how difficult.
I know engineers are like one of like the definitely like a tough like job, but like once you like get a degree, like you can find like any job you want.
So I have a lot of respect for him. I mean, he was able to graduate, and I'm not sure what his grade point average was, but he clearly took his studies seriously, and then on the court, based on like his titles, he was clearly great on the court as well. But aside from seeing two former players, during the game, I kind of talked about this on the last show a little bit as well, but Leland Walker is really, really stepping into kind of the assister mentality on the court, which I feel like has become a great development. In the Charlotte game, he ended up with 7 assists, and on the season, he's averaging the team with 4.2 assists per game. So I remember there were a couple of different instances during that matchup when he found Vokatitis, Caleb Glenn, and they had those kind of dunks that I was talking about that really got the crowd going.
Yeah, I think one of the first dunks in the game
was from Glenn.
Yeah, it was Glenn. He like shocked the entire crowd. I remember being there because I was covering that game for TV, and next to me were the two broadcasters for radio, and we literally recreated that like MMA meme, like the UFC thing, like Dana White, Dan Lemire, or I forgot his last name. The 3 guys that go like, oh my god, like that meme, or that gif. Yeah, you don't know. But so we like kind of recreated that because we were so shocked at how good that dunk was. Like that literally lit up the crowd.
Yeah, I know. I think I remember like looking back at you. I'm like, look, they're doing it. Like this is exactly what. And also, I think that having the tailgate prior to the game impacted it a lot because the student section was rocking during that matchup. I mean, I'm sure that it was also because it was a later game, so people were out of classes, you know, they had time to go. But it was loud in there.
I know they're doing another tailgating.
For this Thursday game that's at 9 p.m. as well.
Yeah, because I think they chose it for 9 p.m. just so they're going to let students tailgate as well.
Yeah, well, also in the opening statement during press, Jacobs said, like, I'm in support. We need to have another tailgate because that kind of, it brings students out more and makes them a little more rowdy.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it that way.
But I think going back to what you were saying about with Leland Walker, of how he's not kind of filling in that assist role, I know like one thing we saw on like the show she's like how well like the team's like working well with one another. I feel like this is really great for them because again, with the schedule they had, following that North Texas loss on the road, after that most of their opponents, again, kind of lower in the conference standings. So that was good to get them to build the edge, start gaining more confidence, but also is important because this new team, you don't know really who's who, what roles they're filling in, and now they're finally filling in those roles. I mean, like, again, Caleb Glenn led the team in scoring off the bench with 18 in that Charlotte game. Like, he's starting to find his role, like, okay, now my role is on the bench. I'm going to accept that role. I'm going to fill in that role. Mm-hmm. And he did, now leading the team in scoring. Now Leland Walker with 7 points. Also, Moretti also kind of finding his, filling in his role, also coming off the bench. Like, FAU, same to what they had last year with that team, also depth, and that really like stood out to them throughout everyone else. And now with FAU bringing that international basketball thing to college basketball, so having kind of like positionless basketball, having all these guys who come into their program, all of them were like having about double digits with their other programs, which I again also thought was like pretty.
I'm sorry.
My voice got raspy all of a sudden.
I'm just like laughing. I'm like, all this broadcasting is making you lose your voice.
But also, because like when you have all these guys coming in, not knowing each other, not knowing how well they're going to mesh with one another, but also the most important part, all of them were like that guy at their schools. It's now coming in, trying to share minutes, trying to share points with other teammates. That's kind of really difficult to try to get adjusted to, and the team is starting to do that. They're starting to mesh well with one another, starting to become an actual team, actual unit. They're doing well defensively, they're doing well offensively, they're starting to become a team.
Exactly.
And they're getting hot at the right time because in a couple more games and then they're in the conference tournament. And they have to win that in order to get back to the March Madness for 3 straight years.
Yeah.
So that they're doing well at the right time right now.
Speaking of doing well at the right time, they did that in their game yesterday against Temple. They came back within the last 10 minutes and they ended up winning by 2.
Yeah.
And they got the 2-point lead with like 2 minutes to go left in the half.
And they were down, I think, like 10 by like the second half.
They were down. Oh my gosh, down by 10, and they ended up coming back and they were able to maintain the lead. And the 2-point lead was like the largest that they had during that game. And also, again, leading scorer of the night was Caleb Glenn with 17 points.
Off the bench as well, yeah.
Exactly. So he is doing incredible off the bench, and I have loved getting to see that development from him. I remember when we did the show last semester with JD and Cameron, like he was one of the players that was mentioned that they're looking forward to seeing how he would develop throughout the season. And it's so nice. I feel like it's a completely different tone than we kind of saw from the team a month ago when they were going through that like difficult period when conference play started. And I think they're starting to really, really come together, and this is the perfect time for the team to be doing that because we're heading into their final stretch of 6 games of the season. And this momentum, it's going to set them up for conference play, which they really need to capitalize in the conference tournament, because an at-large bid is not going to happen.
Yeah, and I also feel like, I mean, again, with the new team, trying to figure out who they are, like at the beginning of the season it looked good, then kind of fell off a little bit, and now conference play started, a little bit rocky, but now they're starting to find out who they are as a team. And like regardless of whatever like program you are, whatever level you're at, when you go to a new school, depending on whatever they're at, whether like a Division I mid-major or whatnot, going again in conference play is a whole different ballgame than those non-conference matchups. Those non-conference matchups are important to determine like if you're able to go into the postseason and like March Madness or whatnot. But those conference tournaments are also important, and those conference matchups are also important to see where you go in those conference tournaments, and also maybe also help you try to get an at-large bid. And it's difficult, especially with the AAC. Like their men's basketball programs in the AAC is one of the best, I think, of all of college basketball. And we saw that last season with the tournament where FAU was like 4th seed. They played in the semifinals against like one of the worst teams in the conference, Temple, because once postseason started, they stepped up because everyone in men's basketball in the AAC, the men's basketball programs, everyone plays each other. All it just determines on where your seeding is. So after that, once you get in the postseason, then it's fair game. Like everyone starts at 0, and Temple end up defeating FAU in the to go to the semifinals. Yeah. No, sorry, to the finals against UAB. So that also added a little bit of edge to FAU to wanting to win this game. But also, I mean, again, looking right now for the assist leader for that game was also Caleb Glenn. So the previous game, it was Leland Walker. Now it's Caleb Glenn.
No, it was Nico Moretti.
Nico Moretti leading the assists. Last game, it was Leland Walker. So also, but really, what this team does that stands out from everyone else is they're so unpredictable. You don't know who's going to be the leading scorer. You would assume, okay, Kiki Tandy had 23 points in one game. Okay, that's going to be their guy. We got to look out for him, scout him. Meanwhile, you got guys like Caleb Glenn and Trey Carroll and Leland Walker and Baba Miller. All those other guys also lethal scorers. Okay, now we also got to keep our eyes on them. Like, they're such a difficult team to try and match up against and try to figure out who will be their top guy because you don't know who's their top guy. They're that deep in the bench where everyone can stand out. Like Auburn, which I'm wearing right now. Auburn's one of those teams as well where, like, when a couple of guys go out, their team has such depth where once a couple of their starters are gone from the game, either being fouled out or injured, the next guy steps up and they're the same team. FAU was one of those teams. It took them a while to figure out how they were going to be as a team, which granted, because first-year head coach, entirely new roster, second year in a tough conference, have a lot of expectations. You were preseason number 5, trying to figure out where you are as a team. They ended up finding out who they were, and again, at the right time, because now every game matters leading up to March.
Exactly, and it's also the statement that you made, it's not important just for other teams and because it makes it difficult to scout, but it's important for FAU because let's say that Caleb Glenn's having an off night or Trey Carroll's having an off night. You
gotta rely on the other guys to help.
Exactly, they can rely on the other guys, and this is what we saw with the team that went to the Final Four where they had a very versatile team, and I'm just excited to see what they can do in this final stretch of their 6 games. And speaking of their next game, they're going to be playing this Thursday at home again against Wichita State, who actually Wichita State just beat Memphis.
Yeah, but I was surprised by that too. I actually tweeted being like, this is going to be a really good game because again, March is so unpredictable, especially again with conference. And so Wichita State in overtime defeated number 21 Memphis, who was on the road. So now Wichita State, now that's the team you got to look out for because Wichita State was, I think, like a game or two behind FAU in the standings. But now, because they took out a ranked opponent in Memphis, now FAU's like, okay, now we really got to like prepare for this. It's not like an easy matchup. There's no easy matchups leading up to March. And that's what's so beautiful about college basketball. And that's what's so beautiful about with this conference is like anything can happen. Expect the unexpected. And
well, because Wichita State, they're on a 4-game win streak, and FAU's on a 5-game win streak. Yeah. So both these teams are hot right now.
Yeah, they're getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, and now I'm sure that Wichita State is coming off with a lot of confidence after beating Memphis. I know if I were them, I would be feeling a little, good heading into this game, especially because FAU, when they did play Memphis to kick off January, lost by 30 points.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a really, really important game for FAU, especially because their next stretch of games is, I believe, against like Memphis and USF.
That could also boost FAU up a little bit because Wichita State took out a ranked team. If Wichita State started to become a really good team and they took out a ranked opponent, you take out Wichita State, building more of that confidence leading up to a really tough road game in Memphis against a ranked opponent. So you guys, again, every game is important, and that's why I felt like that like UTSA South Florida matchups, those games are so important because the next games were against teams lower in the conference before leading to a tough stretch with Memphis, North Texas, and South Florida, and UAB. 3 out of those 4 teams are in the top of the conference. So you need to start winning those games now, leading up to those. So building the confidence, trying to see who we are as a team, what works well. And also, like, because everyone's new in the conference, hardly anyone played last year in the American except for Trey Carroll and a couple other guys on the bench. So now it's like, now we know how well we play against those other opponents. When we meet them again, we know what we're going to do better to then win those games.
Exactly. Now, I want to do what we did last show again, where let's predict the score for this game. Now, not to brag, but I was the closest last time around. I said 80-something, and that's what the final score was.
All right, so I gotta look up how.
What are you doing?
I'm trying to look up how well Wichita State is in the conference.
They're 5-7.
5-7. Okay, because I want to see like what their how many points per game they have. Because I'm gonna try.
Oh, you're going to do some calculations?
Yeah, I'm going to try to do some math. I'm going to try to do some algebra or calculus or whatever it is.
I haven't taken math in like 3 years, so I don't know. People are like, what's 5 plus 5? I'm like, I don't know.
And once you add variables, it just gets really confusing.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to say that the final score is going to be FAU 85 and Wichita State 79. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, because I'm looking right now, so FAU is second in the conference scoring, Wichita State's 8th, and then scoring defense, Wichita State's 5th, FAU is 11th. So I feel like it might be, I'm going to say FAU 84, Wichita State, probably 77, I think. But I feel like it's going to be a close game throughout the entire stretch. I feel like it's going to be absolutely...
For sure. It's going to be a really close game.
And it's going to be really important also for the fans to show up and show out. And I think that's why John Jacobs also said, hey, let's do another tailgate, because how well y'all were there showing up.
Yeah,
show up and show out.
Student, you have to listen to John Jacobs because he's the head coach.
Listen to the beard.
Oh, yeah. No, we have to start that. What was it? Fear the beard.
Fear the beard, yeah.
Fear the beard.
Yeah, we had Dusty Be Trusty, now is Fear the beard.
Well, I think that wraps up like our FAU men's basketball little segment. So we'll go ahead and go into our live read. So if you're a club or student organization wanting to promote an event you're hosting or just want to promote yourself, DM UPress Sports on Instagram with 3 to 4 sentence paragraph, and we'll read it live on air. Now, we have a little less room, and this is Angelina.
Hi, guys.
So do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes. Hi, everyone, live and listening. My name's Angelina Martell. I'm the University Press's sports reporter, and I'm very happy that Megan and Maddox decided to have me for Morgan today.
Well, I'm really glad that you were able to. We didn't have her on the men's basketball segment because she actually works with the team.
Conflict of interest. It's okay. Because women's basketball is just equally as fun.
Exactly. So. And she has basically been a beat reporter for women's basketball. So she's really gotten to see the team. Right now, the women's basketball team is 10-16, and they are 2-11 in the AAC. They are now dead last in the AAC after losing to USF Saturday, 74-62. I know both of you guys covered that game. I also went with my parents. What do you feel like was kind of the downfall? Because FAU, they were down by, 21-9?
So at the end of the first quarter, FAU trailed to USF 22-9, but then by halftime, they were able to cut their deficit to just 7 points, having it be 37-30. And I believe in just that half alone, Maya Perry and Stephanie Ingram were both tied leading scorers with 11 points. And Ingram was shooting 83% from the field, which is insanely good. And then Maya was shooting, I believe, just under 50%. I believe it was 47%, but she was 75% from behind the arc.
Yeah, and then they were able to get within a 2-point deficit, and then completely, once they got that close, completely just fell off. And I feel like we're seeing the same exact trends happening that we've been talking about with this women's basketball team. And it's disappointing that they're able to get so close and then they can't just come through. Like USF, I believe, they ended up making like 2 more shots after FAU had got within 2, and then FAU completely just started missing everything again. Maddox, what'd you feel like? Like, what'd you see?
So at the beginning of the game, I saw Sammy Poesis for South Florida just absolutely balling, not missing like a single shot. I also saw Stephanie Ingram leading almost, having about 6 out of the 9 points FAU had in the first half. So she also was like carrying FAU. But again, later in the game, they were down by as much as like 15, came back within 2. They just couldn't get past that. They were able to they were in the big hole they dug themselves into. They were able to try to dig themselves out, but then they couldn't. In the very end, when games like that are very important, the very last few minutes, they just struggled as a team, and they gave up 45.9% from the field USF shot, 38.1% from behind the arc, 62.5% from the free throw line. Like, they struggled heavily late in that game. I think, again, it always winds down to the coaching because you need, and it's like late in those games, you need to do is when you're within about like 2 points and when you're close to the end of the game, you have to step up as a team. You are like, we're within this close, we have to get better at that moment. And you're having players like Maya Perry and Stephanie Ingram and Jada Moore, all of them having leading the team in scoring with 22, 15, and 13, all having double-digit points. But again, overall as a team, they just couldn't score any points. Three out of the four other players that scored all had 2 points. So they just haven't had much depth. They're just have those top players, and then that's it. Like they have like no depth of having struggling, trying to get within points within that deficit to USF. Again, I feel like that always finds down to coaching, because at the end of the day, in those moments of adversity, in those games, coaching has to step up and say, hey, we got to be responsible now. We have to start playing better.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also just the way that they're shooting layups is so...
like the hook shots are like overshooting every single one.
Yeah, and just kind of, like I said, just kind of throwing it up. Oh, my mic. Jeez.
She threw that mic up too.
Yeah. I forgot that that was attached to my arm. But with USF, they would drive to the rim and then actually put arc on the ball, and that's why their layups were going in. But FAU, instead, they're driving aggressively, which it looks like it's going to be successful, and then kind of just lobbing it like underneath. Almost, it's from that perspective, I don't understand that from a coaching standpoint. So that's why I feel like
it seems like the team has been consistent throughout the entire season, has actually like no improvement. Because as we were saying, like early in the season, a couple weeks ago, you were saying how that shooting, then the hook shots and whatnot, they're just not making those shots. And that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. The same thing, it's still the same thing, and that always relies down to coaching. Is you have to do is improve your team. That's why you're here as a coach, to improve your team, and getting ready for those next matchups. Since AAC conference play started, they've just been slow. They have not really had much success. In non-conference, they won 9 games. After that, in conference, they only won 1 game.
Yeah.
So that all that has relied down to whether it be either the playing or coaching. I think at the end of the day, as a team, always relies down on the coaching, because their players are still doing well scoring-wise. They're still able to put up points. You got players again like Stephanie Ingram, one of the best assist player in the league, in the nation. You got like players like Jada Moore and Zai Jenks also doing well scoring-wise. But you have like those like top players, but overall as a team, those results are not showing.
Yeah, and Angelina, since you've covered like a lot of their games prior to conference play and now with conference play, what do you feel like have you like noticed covering them since they've started and then had this decline that we've been talking about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like a big contributor to the team's downfall has been injuries. So their star freshman guard, Erin Rogers, she went down earlier in the season with an ACL injury, so she's now out for the remainder of the season. But in all 12 games she's played, she's averaged 12 points, 5 rebounds, and has been 44% from the field. And in more than half of those games, she's been the team's leading scorer. So that definitely hurts, because you have one offensive asset and a defensive asset, given that she's averaging almost 6 rebounds per game within just 12 games. So that's at least 2 rebounds.
Yeah, that's like 2 rebounds per game.
Yeah, so just having that loss with an offensive and a defensive asset in one, it obviously hurts. But then again, she's only a freshman, so she has so much more time ahead of her, not only to heal from her injury, but to get better at her game. And being that how good she is right now as a freshman, she has so much more time to build off of her current success and then just keep on getting better and better and better. So, and then another one, Alana Rouser, she's currently playing right now, but if you watch any of the games, she plays with a knee brace on. I'm not exactly sure what injury she had, but it did cause her to miss some games, which also hurts, because she too averages 5 rebounds per game and is 36% from the field. While she's not an extremely strong offensive asset, of course, defense is just as important, both sides of the court. So again, like Erin, she's also a freshman, which I found out today. I thought she was much older, but I mean, in my opinion, she plays like she has a lot of experience, like she's been there for some time.
For sure.
So, and then one more, another freshman, Sydney Maines, she only played 1 game, and she went out with an ACL tear again, so she is out for the remainder of the season. But in her 1 game, she had 2 points, and like I said, Erin, she has so much more time to heal, so much more time to grow. So I really do feel like injuries have played a huge role in why the women's team haven't played to their highest ability. And honestly, regardless of their scoring deficits throughout their games, they never go down without a fight. I'm going to use the Kennesaw State game as a perfect example. They were down for that entirety of the game, and in the 4th quarter, something switched, and they came back and won. So I believe by double digits. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was a great game. So I just know that regardless of their opponent, they're going to play to their best of their ability. Like USF, second-ranked team in the conference. When they played North Texas a month ago, they were also the second-ranked team in the conference. While the end result was not pretty because they lost by 20, they never don't go into every game with the same mindset that we're going to try as hard as we can. We're going to give it our all no matter what the outcome is, no matter how much down we are at halftime, because I feel like they are definitely a second half team. Like I said with Kennesaw, they were able to come back after being down majority of the game.
And they did win that game 71-56, so you're right.
So yeah, double digit win. And as far as changes go, I've talked to Coach Sullivan about if she plans to make any more adjustments at this point in the season, and she just said that this late in the season, they're not worried a lot about making those changes, and just they're gonna play off what they have. They've made a couple of defensive tweaks because of injuries, but other than that, they're just gonna, like I said, go into every game, play the best they can, play the game of basketball how they know it, and it's a matter of just, again, injuries.
Yeah, I'm glad that you pointed out the injuries, because that's something that we haven't brought up before on the show, and Erin Rogers is definitely, like, really...
She's a beast.
Yeah, no, she is a beast. Like, it's so unfortunate for the team that they ended up losing her, especially because she is a freshman. I mean, she's going to have time, like you said, to come back, and she'll be able to regroup and have success again next season. But in her first game, she did amazing, and that was when FAU was doing fairly well at the beginning of the season. And I don't know, I think that, and injuries are such like in sports, they really can completely make or break a team. Like
it's such a superstition, because especially an ACL injury is an extremely scary, and honestly, it's a traumatizing injury, because you'll go back onto the court and all you're going to think about is what happens if I hurt myself again? What if I do the little jab step that made me tear my ACL? And so she's just going to go into every game thinking, like, what if? But as an athlete, you also can't really have that mindset, because if you just go into every game with that mindset, you're not going to play to the best of your ability, because I'm sure when she was healthy, she wasn't thinking every second she dribbled down the court, like, oh, what if I just break my ankle right now?
Yeah.
What if I just, like, get elbowed in the face, like, driving to the paint? So,
I mean, even Maya Perry, you had found out that she was out for 2 games because she had a concussion.
Yeah, she was off the box score when they played Tulane and Rice, but regardless of her not being present and her being the leading scorer, they were able to win 66-61 to the reigning conference champions, the Rice Owls. So maybe we're just the better Owls, but we will find out, because we are also set next Tuesday, the 18th. We will fly to Houston to play Rice. And last time they played, it was a 66-61 win, so a very close game. We are 4-7 in the program's history against Rice, but we are 1-3 on the road. And honestly, our last scoring was, we shot 53% from the field and 58% from the three, which are great statistics, almost 60% from three. Having a higher field goal percentage from behind the arc than within the field in general is very impressive.
No, it is. And I mean, hopefully that they can kind of enter this game with a little bit of confidence, but I'm sure that Rice is going to be going with a little chip on their shoulder, since they did lose the last time that they played FAU. And
it is home court advantage.
It is. So do we think that FAU is going to be able to come away with a win again against Rice? Or are they going to keep doing their little losing
If they play
streak?
The way they played when they last versed Rice, absolutely. Stephanie Ingram had a career high 25 points, went 9 for 17 from the field and 5 for 8 from 3, 100% from the free throw line. Tazai Jenks, 14 points and 2 rebounds. So two double-digit scoring from 2 of the most contributed players on this team. And honestly, this was the game Maya Perry was also out. So who knows how much more we would have won by if she was in the game, being that she's also the Owls' leading scorer.
Yeah, that's true. But it's interesting. I'm also looking at the statistics. Like, yeah, their shooting was great, but they had 17 turnovers that game, and Rice only had 8. So hopefully turnovers is something that they can limit a little bit more. And that's one of the things actually during that USF game was the turnovers. That played a critical role during their last kind of final minutes during the game. Who was it? I think that it was Jada Moore. She was driving down the court like on a fast break and then completely just lost control of the ball. And USF was able to take advantage of that and then go ahead and score. So I don't know. They just need to really come together and limit their turnovers, especially during important plays. Maddox, what are you thinking about this matchup and kind of the rest of their season?
Well, I mean, I honestly didn't know at the time that Rice was like the top team in the conference. So seeing that they won against Rice was good. I also feel like the last couple of games, they haven't been doing that well as a team, kind of struggling. Even late in the game where it's getting kind of close, those minutes are critical, and they just haven't been able to capitalize on that. Those are the most crucial minutes that make or break teams. And losing 3 straight games. First game you lost to was Wichita State, who was at like the worst in the conference, and now you're worse in the conference is not good. So I feel like it's tough to make adjustments after teams get injured or whatnot. Like when you have depth that helps you a little bit, FAU is still kind of struggling with that depth. A lot of players, most of their games have like 3 or so players double digits. Everyone else has like kind of single digits or no points. Like they're just not finding out. They're still not trying to figure out. They're just not finding themselves as like a team. I feel like, and it's like your second year in the conference as a head coach. So you have to like try and make those adjustments. Even like late in the season, it could be kind of difficult, especially since everyone at conference will be playing each other, just determining what your seeding is. But I mean, as long as Maya Perry has a good game against Rice and they try to lower those turnovers, not turn the ball over as many times, then possibly could get a win on the road, but also get a home court advantage. Like you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be another battle of the Owls since there's literally 3 schools in the AAC with Owls, which is it's so annoying. Like when we're covering games that are against another Owl, like that's when the men's team just played Temple.
It's a battle of the Owls.
Yeah, it is. But also in the article, we would say like, oh, FAU, USF, or the Bulls and the Owls to kind of switch things up a little bit. But you just have to be so redundant.
Yeah. I mean, not that this has anything to do with it, but when we were on a 7-game losing streak, we broke that with a Rice W, or a W against Rice. We're on a 3-game losing streak now, so will we break our losing streak playing Rice again?
It'll be a repeat.
Yeah, but hopefully, I'm hoping we can at least get a W on one of our last road games of the season to close out on a good note.
Yeah.
After that, they'll fly to Charlotte to face the 49ers. So.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we'll have to see, but I guess we can do the same thing that we just did for the men's team. Why not? Let's all make a score prediction. What do we think that the score will be for the FAU and Rice game? Who would like?
Maddox, go first.
Maddox, you can start. The pressure's on you.
All right. I think just like the first game will be a little bit of low scoring, but I think probably late in the game, Rice might get an edge because again they're at home, so I feel like probably be 60-70.
Rice?
Yeah.
Okay. I also, unfortunately, don't really have much faith in FAU for this game. Not to be a hater, but I'm going to say 67 Rice and 62 FAU.
Okay, close game. Yeah, I'm looking at the matchup predictor right now on ESPN, and it says Rice has an 89.9% chance of beating FAU. So, honestly, since you guys have no faith, no, I'm kidding. I'm going to be the one odd one out.
You're going to be different.
I just want to be different so bad. So, I have FAU winning, I'm going to say 66-63 FAU. It's going to be a close game.
Okay.
I think
it'll
definitely be a close game.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't expect us to.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be a close game, but we'll have to cut back to this next week and then see who ended up right for both of them.
Oh yeah.
But now getting off the topic of basketball, with FAU softball. So last week they had just won out their it was the Paradise Classic.
Yep.
And then this past weekend, they just played in the Joan Joyce Classic, and now they're 9-2. In the tournament, they ended up going 3-2. And I went to my first softball game on Saturday. That was a lot of fun.
Aren't they fun?
Yeah, I
They're
did
so
a little double header with my parents. We went to the women's basketball game because that was at 2, and then the softball game was at 4. So it was a lot of fun to watch them. And during that game was actually when they had beat North Texas.
Carolina
Wow.
State.
North Carolina State. They ended up beating North Carolina State 4-3, which that game was it was a little weird because North Carolina State, they had made one run in each of their first 3 innings, and then FAU had a really great inning where they got like bases loaded, and then they ended up scoring 4 points in that, and then the rest of the game was just a standstill, basically.
That's soft.
But Maddox, yesterday you covered like their final game against Delaware, or not Delaware, that's for the men's team.
Louisville, yeah.
Yeah, against Louisville, and they ended up losing that one. So what kind of like happened? Because they lost 0-4, which is pretty substantial.
I mean, early in the game, it was like back-to-back runs by Louisville. Then in the top of the third, they also got a run. So like FAU like kind of struggled, I think, a little bit defensively, pitching out of the 2 pitchers. Louisville, their only pitcher was Zabala, and she pitched the entire 7 innings, a complete game, allowed 11 hits, 4 strikeouts against 30 batters. So she looked strong. At the very end of the game, though, FAU was with bases loaded, and then they just couldn't capitalize on it. I was speaking with Jordan Clark after the game, the head coach. She said just like an off game, but other than that, like I'm just proud of how we played against other teams throughout the past 2 conferences, the past 2 classics, built us better as a team, and now they're playing one game against FIU before going to Stetson to play in the Stetson Invitational against some other pretty big opponents. So I mean the program's looking good. Just early in the season, have some woes. I mean they also were shut out twice. First was Louisville. The other one was a little bit earlier to start the second game of the Joan Joyce Classic, 1-0 to Villanova. So and FAU also kind of struggled offensively there. So I mean, you win some, you lose some. You have some good days, have some bad days. But luckily for like them, like the schedule, like so many more games in the schedule, I'm sure enough they're gonna be fine. But also I think something to bring up, and I brought this up to you, Megan, right before we started the show, was because the other day I was watching a little bit of the FSU and UCF Shriners Children's Clearwater Invitational for softball, and they brought up the 2026 teams, one of them being FAU, and that's like a very prestigious like invitational to be a part of. They're playing against really tough schools, also NC State, Missouri, FSU, which are one of the top offenses right now in the league, in the nation. Also like Tennessee, Nebraska. They're playing good softball schools, so that's also going to build up that program as well, showing to the nation, hey, we're also a very good softball conference. Because as we were mentioning, is FAU a softball school? We don't know, because right now they're doing so well this year, and last year they also they ended their season really well, 41-16.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's way too early in the season to be concerned about these 2 losses. At least that's what I think. Do you guys think the same?
No, I mean, honestly, given what Maddox just said, I was going to bring that up earlier if he didn't bring it up, but being the fact that we're a part of an 18-team roster with 12 out of those 18 teams being ranked, including us, I feel like that's an honor.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, like I feel like this is very similar to the men's basketball Final Four run, where no one really knew what we were capable of that year until we showed it, and then the following year we were good, but we weren't as good.
Yeah,
because I feel like we had an expectation to live up to, but
also like everyone knew what the program was now, because it was like a little bit like no one knew who the school was out Boca Raton. Now it's like now we all know who Boca Raton.
Yeah, exactly.
Boca Raton. Now we gotta be.
We're not just known for palm trees and the beach. We have a decent sports team, but
Some of them.
But honestly, though, I talked to Coach Clark at Media Day, and she was telling me how we want to constantly remind these girls that this isn't last year's team, this is this year's team. So we can't go into every game with the mindset of what was, and now we have new players to look forward to, and new games and new teams to play to look forward to, and They just have to go into every game with the same mindset and can't harp on the fact that last year we were regular season and conference champions, and that this year we're going to accomplish that same goal and if not go further. So, like I said, I feel like it is way too early to be worried because we are 9-2, and we did take down one of the best offenses in the country earlier in the season, Clemson. It was almost a shutout. It was 6-0 up until, I believe, bottom of the 4th inning.
Yeah.
And then they scored their 2 runs, and then after that, like Megan said, it was a standstill. So honestly, I have so much faith. And I didn't watch the Minnesota game. I was actually leaving basketball that day, and it was the bottom of the 2nd inning, and we were already up 7-0. In the bottom of the 2nd inning. There's 7 innings in softball, for those of you watching who don't know. But we ended up winning that game 13-4, which was extremely impressive.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's like really important for the team is that 2 of their assistant coaches were players last year.
Yeah.
So Trinity. I'm going to butcher this last name.
Schlotterbeck.
Okay. I'm going to let you say it. And then also Caitlin DeLon, and they both were with the team last season. And I think it's important for the players. I remember Sophia Rodriguez did an article back when Caitlin DeLon was announced as one of the assistant coaches for the season, and the players were saying how they really value having her, especially with her insight, because yes, they were friends last season, but she's able to step into this more professional role, and it sounds like the athletes that are still on the team are respecting her in this role, and I feel like it just brings kind of some familiarity to the team, and also Caitlin can use her insight from last season when they had one of their most successful years since 2016, and let the incoming freshmen and all the new players that were brought on. So I think having those 2 people, it's important because it kind of helps with the team camaraderie.
Yeah, I think also for them having a successful year last year, and a lot of players on the team are freshmen or transfers coming into this program, they want to go and have that success as well. And so having some of those key players they had last season now on the coaching staff kind of helps them as well, being hey, we know how what it takes to get there. We're going to help you guys even further.
Exactly.
I'm glad you guys brought that up because, again, when I talked to Coach Clark, she was like, I'm a little weary hiring old members of the team to be a part of staff because I guess she didn't want it to be almost like a distraction, but like you guys said, with their insight from last year's team and the experience they have being on this team, it gives the freshmen and the new transfers insight to what true team, like Megan said, true team camaraderie is like. And
yeah, so
I remember. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I remember. I'm kind of backtracking to whether we should be worried or not about this early in the season with 2 losses. I spoke with Ainsley Lambert, who is their closing pitcher, and she said something that still sticks with me to this day. Pressure is a privilege. They want that target on their back. They want people to see, hey, we lost 2 games in the same classic after coming off of a 6-0 previous classic, the Paradise Classic. So she emphasized how we want people to want to beat us. We want that target on their back. We don't want to go into every game assuming that just because of the run we had last year, we can do it again this year. So just considering the schedule we had, like I said, we played against one of the best offenses in the country, and we almost shut them out. So just having that mindset of pressure is a privilege is, again, it sticks with me still to this day. I have it sticky noted on my computer.
Oh my gosh, she actually does.
It's so cute. Can you zoom in?
No.
It says, it says pressure is a privilege in all caps with lots of exclamation points.
Revealing the rest of the show.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's okay. I don't think I can see it. But
yeah, I mean, that's important. With sports, nothing's guaranteed. We all kind of know this, and we see that even with the statistics, even though it said that FAU is going to lose or their matchup against Rice, they only had a 10% chance. Who knows? But FAU softball, yeah, their next game is going to be against FIU, and it will also be
we play ourselves.
It's going to be a home game. But FAU baseball. So they just started their season last week, and they went 3-0. They played Delaware on the 14th, 15th, and 16th. And I didn't watch any of the games, but when I was looking at the scores. On the 15th, they had won 9-1. And then on the 16th, they won 7-0. 19-1
That's
is
insane.
Yeah, like I was like befuddled. I saw that and I didn't know what other word to use it with. But you broadcasted those, right?
So I broadcasted the season home opener against Delaware on the 14th. They won that game 9-4, and Trey Beard, I believe also I think he's a freshman, I believe. Hold on, let me double check on that. I think he is, but he struck out 10 batters. Sorry, sophomore. He struck out 10 batters in 4 innings. He was just so unpredictable. And also, like, beginning of the season, like, we have, like, new players or whatnot, like, you don't know, most players won't know in the batting order how well that pitcher is until, like, the second time they're at bat. So that had a little bit of an edge. And it showed because, again, 10 strikeouts, and then later on gave up 2 runs in the top of the 4th. And after that, Coach McCormick said, okay, we're not going to, like, have you out starting at the top of the 5th. So they started like emptying their bullpen a little bit to get some more guys warm up beginning of the season. But FAU looked great in that game. And then going back to the 19-1 game, which I didn't cover, but with that, like, it was just, I was also shocked by that, like 19 runs, but also think about how well Kyle Boylston, like how deep this team is, because Kyle Boylston, the freshman, who's also going to be playing for FAU football as well, he had 5 at-bats, 3 runs, 4 hits, 4 RBIs. He just led the scoreboards. He was one of, I think, about like 5 players that had 3 or more runs, and and then there was 3 other guys who had 4 runs, which was Dylan LaPont, Patrick Ward, and Jake Millen. So FAU had that depth with them as a team, and they just led the scoreboard over Delaware. Delaware also pretty good school. They had some success the previous couple of years as a program. They're also like a good baseball school, but FAU had that edge entering the series 8-1 over them, and it showed, especially at the very end, the last game of the series, where the game I called, which was FAU won 7-0. Also, the pitching looked pretty good. They had true freshman James Littman, from a local guy from West Boca. He pitched 3.2 innings, had 4 runs, struck out 4 batters. He was just throwing, like, basically throwing like meatballs, throwing strikeouts after strikeout, just like really unpredictable for the batters. And all total of 6 pitchers for FAU threw no hitters. So at the end of the day, Delaware didn't score any points, and FAU started lining up the scoreboard, having 5 total runs in 2 innings. So FAU was looking well offensively, and they're doing well defensively. So I feel like FAU started the season off really well, especially since last season they ended their season 28-29. Their first year in the American Athletic Conference, and their last game of the season, they qualified for the tournament, and then they lost, or they won 2-2 in the tournament and lost to I think it was like Tulane or Charlotte twice. So it's good for FAU to start the season off, getting the bat swing, starting to see how well their bullpen is, seeing who their top guys are, because they lost 19 guys last season.
Yeah, I remember seeing that they lost a lot of players, but I think having this 3-0 start is going to be really great for kind of their confidence going forward. And who knows, maybe in like a month from now, we'll be saying, are we a softball and baseball school?
Well, they're playing Miami next, which Miami is a really tough school.
Yeah,
well.
It's obviously way too early to tell for either of the teams how what their final kind of season record will be, and how it's actually going to go for them.
The baseball and I believe also softball tournaments start late May. So right now we're in like late February. We're talking about like in 3-4 months from now.
Exactly. It's just the season's so long and there's so many games. But it's exciting. You know, both softball and baseball are having really great starts so far. So we'll see how they continue to go. But we do have our club team that wrapped up their regular season play, and now they'll be heading into the playoffs. FAU hockey. Their D2 team finished 12-1-1, and then the Division III team finished 12-2. And both of them clinched the playoffs for College Hockey South. FAU, the D2 team finished with 25 points, and then the D3 team finished with 24 points. So they're both top in the standings, and the playoffs for the Division II team are going to be February 21st through the 23rd. And then for D3, it's the 20th through the 23rd. So, and both the teams, they're going to get to host the playoffs at the Panthers Ice Den, which come on, like, can we do a little clap for the Division III team for their first? This was their first season, and they completely just blew it out of the water and just clinched the playoffs with the first seed. Do we feel like? I don't know. I mean, I just feel like their success kind of proved themselves to the school a little bit. Like, I know we talked about how is this going to become a club or an actual team sanctioned sport, which that's something that would happen a really, really long time from now. I'm talking probably like 10 years. But it's incredible that within their first season as a team, you know, obviously first year with all the players, first year with the coaches, and the D3 team did just as well as the Division II team. Does this kind of like, I feel like it's going to propel them to get more fan base and more support from the school going forward?
I think so, because I mean, you see like people in the breezeway or whatnot, even I think like the vice president of the Division of Student Affairs, Dr. Fairman, he also wearing like a FAU hockey club jerseys. So, like everyone's wearing those jerseys, like everyone's showing support, everyone on campus is invested in this club sport. So I feel like with the program right now, with the club right now, I mean, they're just showing right now that like everyone in Florida loves hockey, because apparently FAU, not FAU, the state of Florida is now like the hockey mecca right now, which is really crazy to think, especially since there's like no snow here. But yeah, like I feel like the club's looking well. First time in Division II. They were originally a Division III club. Now they're also a Division II club. And their first year, 12-1-1, 25 points. Like, they're looking good right now. So, I mean, much success to them.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like this doesn't even just have to do with hockey, but I'm looking at the teams that are in our standings. Like, there's Power 5 schools like Florida State, Florida, Miami. You can even count Central Florida now that they're in the Big 12. But I feel like when people look at those types of teams, and those teams specifically are mostly known for their athletics, I know Florida is a Division III hockey team, but they are an SEC school, and they're known for their athletics. So when you look at a high major team versus a mid-major team like FAU, just a mid-major athletic school, you don't think too much of them. You know what I mean? I don't know a lot about hockey, but I know stats obviously don't lie. We're first place in both Division II and Division III standings. So I feel like a lot of the times, sometimes the schools take us for granted because it is FAU, and when we're not the biggest name in sports. But again, not saying this has anything to do with us playing hockey, but I feel like sometimes the team can look at the school and be like, oh, we got it, because it's not a super big school, but it's getting to that point. And like you said, we're considering making it an actual national team, along with schools like Michigan. Notre Dame has a hockey team, right? I know Michigan is a hockey school for sure.
Yeah, Michigan State.
I think Notre Dame's lacrosse. I'm thinking of the wrong club sport.
Minnesota definitely is also hockey as well.
Yes, that's true. But like you guys said, those are teams with snow. And they, FAU doesn't get a lot of that. Actually, we don't get any. I lied. That's completely off topic. But I'm just, that's kind of funny.
Actually, Jacksonville had got like 2 inches or
I think
something?
so, yeah. I was speaking with our advisor, Wes, one time. He's like, man, it's snowing in my city. I'm like, bro, you're the mayor of Jacksonville. What are you saying my city for?
He's not from Jacksonville, is he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Really?
Sorry,
for those of you that don't know, Wes is just a character. Yeah. But he's a great advisor to all of us. We all really appreciate him.
Shout out Wes.
Yeah, shout out Wes. He's probably not watching.
He's probably
this.
watching, be like, girl.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, just good luck to the hockey teams. For the D3, they'll be playing this Thursday. So they'll be playing I believe it's like a tournament kind of style playoffs. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, it was the top 4 teams that had clinched it, and then the bottom 4 got dropped. So we were able to do it. But I think that kind of wraps up everything that we had for today's show. So with that, where can they find you guys? You can start.
Oh, me? Okay. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Maddox Greenberg and on Instagram at MaddoxBlade04.
And you can find me on Instagram at Megan_Bruinsma and at Twitter, Megan Bruinsma.
And you guys can follow me on Instagram at Angie Martell with 2 E's.
And that's all for today. See you guys next Monday. Peace.
Bye. Oh, peace. Sorry.
Thank you.